Om Sahana Vavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma Vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om Purnamadah Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Shruti Smriti Purananam Alayam Karunalayam Namami Bhagavatpadam Shankaram Lokashankaram Shankaram Shankaracharyam Keshavam Badarayanam Sutra Bhashya Krutau Vande Bhagavantau Punah Punah Ishvaro Gururatmedi Murti Bheda Vibhagine Vyomavad Vyapta Dehaya Dakshinamurtaye Namaha. Chaitanyam Sarvagam Sarvam Sarvabhuta Guhashayam Yat Sarva Vishayatitam Tasmai Sarva Vide Namaha. The verse 79 said, Amityajakshanishthaschet amadyakshayo katham sambandho vachayavatra yenat tvamidilakshaye. The whole argument in favor of including Chidabhasa is that is how this sambandha of Chit with this buddhi and the vyavaharik element or entities such as buddhi is established. The only way sambandha of the Granthakara keeps on calling it changeless, which is true. What it is, it enjoys a Paramadika Satta. Buddhi and rest enjoy Vyavaharika Satta. And there cannot be relation unless two entities enjoy the same Satta. Then only they can coexist in the same locus. And therefore somehow the Chaitanya or Chit or Adhyaksha is called here, or witness, should acquire the Vyavaharik Satta. And that is how the Chidabhasa, the reflection, possesses qualities similar to consciousness, but it's a reflection. So it is changing and therefore it is buddhi. So the reflecting medium is buddhi and therefore it is changing, buddhi pakshapati. Nevertheless, now we have the buddhi which is illumined by the Chidabhasa, and through that medium other things also get illumined. So because meaning anything can become object of knowledge only when it is illumined by consciousness. So Tvamiti. Suppose in the Tattvamasi Mahavakya. So various alternatives are being considered to see whether that statement can convey the meaning without the inclusion of Chidabhasa. Tvamiti adhyakshanishthaschet. Tvamiti padam ahankaravachi sat. Although tvam means ahankara. Adhyakshanishtam adhyaksham bodhayati iti ched. Let us say that even though Tattvamasi, the word Tvam means you, which means ahankara of the listener, and still ahankara, adhyakshavachi, it conveys the meaning that it is adhyaksha. How? Ahankara and adhyaksha must have some sambandha, then only the meaning can be from ahankara to adhyaksha. अहंकार अध्यक्षयो संबंध ग्रहणमंतरेण वाक्यार्थबोध अनुपत्ते है. In some way the mind should move from ahankara to adhyaksha to understand that what is meant by tvam, which is direct meaning is ahankara, vacyartha, while lakshyartha is adhyaksha. Aham adhyakshayō sambandha vācyaha eva atra. Therefore, that sambandha has to be explained. Yena tvam iti lakshayet. By that sambandha, that ahankara by lakshana vritti will reveal adhyaksha. For that, shakya sambandha must be there. Drashtu drishyatva sambandha yadi अध्यक्षे अक्रिये कथम. Suppose drashtu drishyatva sambandha. Ahankara is drishya, adhyaksha is drashta. How are that sambandha? So again, none of them can be in primary sense drashta and drishya. Ahankarasya jadatvat. Ahankara also can become drishya. Any object can become drishya, like ghatapata, only when it is ultimately illumined by consciousness. Ghatapata as it is cannot become drishya. Only when consciousness with mind travels through the organ of perception, contacts that object, assumes that form, and the chidavasa in that vritti illumines the ghata. So ghata must be illumined by the consciousness, then only it can become the object of knowledge, then only it can become drishya. As it is, ghata cannot become drishya. So ahankara by itself cannot become drishya unless it is illumined in some way. Nor can adhyaksha become drashta as is, because adhyaksha is changeless. Therefore, katham sambandha grahana kartrutvam ityardharva adhyaksha, how will adhyaksha know that I am drashta if it remains changeless, without any change happening in ahankara? Mastu sambandha grahanam tathapi. Tadatma udesha bhavishari. Tadatmya. Not sambandha, but tadatmya sambandha. Between adhyaksha and ahankara. Drishti virodha, but that contradicts our experience. यथा लोके घटस्य शौक्ल्यमिति घट शौक्ल्ययोः संबंध अग्रहणे. So ghata and shauklyam, the whiteness, will coexist in the same locus at the same time. If ghata and whiteness are not simultaneously perceived in the same locus, then even if somebody says shuklaha ghataha, if shauklyam and ghata are not perceived simultaneously in the same locus, then this vakya doesn't convey the meaning. Atma adhyaksho mamastiti. Similarly, mama atma adhyaksha asti. That my atma is adhyaksha, that sambandha also will not be. Unless atma and ahankara, both of them coexist with the sambandha aham and mama. Continuing the verse 81. Eshamaatma antarhruday aniyan. Eshamaatma antarhruday etad brahmayadi. Chandogya Upanishad says, Esha me atma. So, Upanishad says, Esha me atma. This atma of mine, antarhrudaye, is in my heart, the lotus of my heart. Aniyan, very small or subtle. So very small in size. Like a small little grain, etc. That's the smallest thing that they had. So like that, my Atma in the lotus of my heart is like an atom. Esha me Atma antarday etad Brahma. Or this Atma in my lotus of the heart is Brahma, all pervasive. So what is subtle in size or what is all pervasive? So that is a statement that my Atma is in heart. So my Atma. So even if you cannot, because Shauklam and Ghataha, if you cannot perceive them coexistent, you cannot see the relationship. But then, Shastrat asti ahankara adyakshayo sambandhagraha iti. Shastra says that Atma is in my heart, so my Atma is in heart. So Shastra says, my Atma, said that Vakya is enough for me to recognize my Atma. Shankam uttapya nirakaroti. A statement in Shastra such as my Atma, it is a statement competent or adequate to create that sambandha. So that is being examined. Next verse is, Sambandha grahanam shastra iti chen manyase nahi purvokta syustridha doshaha graho vasyan mameti cha. All right? There is no way that you yourself can recognize Mama Atma. Shastrat sambandha grahanam chediti manyase. But Shastra says, Esha me Atma. Shastra says, Atma is mine. So that is how, by Shastra we establish sambandha, possessiveness between I and my Atma. Nahi. So, sambandha grahanam shastra ched manyase. Purva Paksha. Nahi answer says no, that also is not tenable. So, nahi to yuktam vyanakti. Why is it not tenable? So, next line is Purvoktaha Syu Tridhaha Doshaha. The three defects that are stated earlier will find their place. There will be occasion for all those three defects that are stated earlier. So, what were the three defects stated? Ahankarasya jaratvad sambandha grahitritvam na ghatate. Ahankara is a chetana. By itself cannot recognize itself as drishya. Ahankara should also be enlivened to recognize I am drishya, otherwise it cannot. Napi adyaksha also cannot itself recognize that I am drashta. Nirvikaratvad, because it's nirvikara. These two doshas were already pointed out in the earlier verse. Jadam prati shrutehe bodhakatva asambhava tritiya dosha. And then if this ahankara is told you are Brahman, And ahankara is achetana. How can Shruti, teach that you are Brahma to someone that is acetanam? Jadam prati Shrutehe bodhakatva sambhavaha. How can ahankara, that is unconscious, respond to what the Shruti says? You can't say this to a stone or something like that. So if ahankara is not enlivened by Chidavasa, then as it is unconscious or insentient, then therefore how can it receive the Upadesha? Tridaha puroktaha tridaha dosha syuhu. So these three doshas that have been said earlier, will be occasion for them. Yadi kathanchit sambandha grahanam kalpyeda, all right. Some way or the other you imagine that is sambandha. Ahankara and adhyaksha. Tadapi mama adhyaksha asti iti sambandha grahanam syat. Then all the ahankara will say adhyaksha is my atma. Natu aham adhyaksha asmi. Sambandha means the shashti, sambandha shashti. There is no sambandha with I and I. Sambandha is between I and mind. So if you say that this Vakya Tattvamasi can somehow bring about sambandha between ahankara and adhyaksha, that sambandha will be adhyaksha mama atma. So that mama, my atma, not aham adhyaksha, I am adhyaksha, that knowledge will not arise. Tadatma adhyas anangikarat, because you have not accepted tadatma between. So this Chidavasa brings about tadatma between adhyaksha and ahankara. But that you don't accept tadatma. Therefore it is mamatma. Tadatma is tadatma. Tadatma is there, then ahankara would say that I am adhyaksha. Tadatma within the iron and fire is there, then iron can say I am red, I am hot, etc. Otherwise it cannot say. Graho vasyan mamedicha, so either mama, that kind of a graha will be there, chakarat, mama adhyaksha asti, to be na ghatate. Even adhyaksha is my atma, that also is not tenable because ahankara is jaratvat. Ahankara cannot say my atma because it is insensation. Evam atmanatmanoho parapakshe sambandha asiddhim uktva. In this manner, parapakshe, what is parapaksha? The paksha that does not accept Chidabhasa. Whatever that paksha is. Asiddhim sambandha asiddhim uktva. Is Chidabhasa which creates sambandha of adhyaksha, which is paramarthika, changeless, with the changing world. So without that Chidavasa, there is no way that the adhyaksha can be related to this vyavaharik tattva, world. Swapakshe, now the teacher comes to Swapaksha. Having exhausted all possible options, no option remains, so by law of elimination, all other options are eliminated. Therefore, by residue now, this is the only paksha remaining. And then that paksha also makes sense. Swapakshe mithya tadatma sambandhe darshayati. Tadatma is mithya, no doubt. Tadatma of the ahankara and chidavasa is mithya tadatma. Not that Chidavasa becomes ahankara. But they appear to be one and inheriting each other's dharmas, remaining what they are. So maintaining the difference, they appear as one. That's called tadatma. And so They accepting the duality between them. So fire remains fire and iron remains iron. They appear to be one. That's called tadatmya. So the Bheda remains, Bheda does not go away. Therefore, when things cool down, Agni will become Agni, fire and iron will become iron, that's all. And that is how oneness is one thing, tadatmya is a different thing. But anyway, we are saying that tadatmya, then chidabhasa and ahankara. Swapakshe mithya tadatmya sambandha iti darshayati. When you accept chidabhasa, then this tadatmya, which is mithya tadatmya, meaning not a real tadatmya, this is enough for explaining all the vyavahara. Because world is mithya, therefore, adrushi iti. So next verse is adrushi drushi rupena bhati buddhir yada tada pratyaya api tasyasyuhu taptayo visphulingavate. Adrushi buddhi yada drushirupena bhati. When adrushi, unconscious buddhi, intellect, drushirupena bhati, shines as though it is conscious. Tada tasya pratyayapi. Then its pratyas, the various modifications of buddhi, will also shine as though they are conscious. Taptayo visphulingavata. Ayaha means iron. Taptaya, like the red hot iron. Visphulingavata, when the iron becomes red hot, then sparks emerge from the iron. So like the sparks emerging from red hot iron are also red and hot. So also the vritti is emerging from buddhi, like the sparks from the iron, they also will be sentient. So the Tika says, Yada adrushi achetana buddhi drishirupena sadabhati iti abhivagamyate. On the other hand, when you accept the achetana buddhi, adrushi means achetana. Drushirupena bhati, it appears as though it is conscious or sentient. Tada tasyaha buddhe pratyaya vrittayo api. Then the pratyaya, the vrittis of the buddhi also, taptayo visfulinganam, just as the sparks emerging from red hot iron ball also are red and hot like iron. So also the vrittis emerging from buddhi also will be similarly sentient like buddhi is. Ajñātmatva dushrupāsyuhu. Ajñātmatvavat. So just as those sparks also are like Agni. Ajñātma means has the nature of fire. So also the vrittis emerging from buddhi also will have the nature of consciousness. Buddhi, which is what the buddhi is because of chidabhasa. Asmin pakshe laukika vaidika vyavahara siddhyavi susampada. That's our paksha. Laukika vaidika vyavahara siddhyavi. All laukika and vaidika vyavahara also can be very easily explained, logically explained. Abhasa iti. Next verse says, Abhasastadabhavascha drishe simno na chanyatha lokascha yuktitasyata tadgrahascha tatha sati. Drishe abhasa tadabhavascha. Abhasa appearance. Abhasa, about disappearance of drushi or consciousness or adhyaksha. Simna, this is the adjective of drushi. Simna, which is the sima, the ultimate boundary, beyond which negation cannot take, which is boundary of negation. So, nacha anyatha, other than the chidavasa, the avasa and abhava of the avasa of Chaitanya cannot be arrived at. Lokasya yukti tasyatam, the loka also cannot arrive at with yukti the avasa and abhava of the Chaitanya. Tadgrasya tatha sati, when it is there, then there is the graha of the avasa and abhava. Says the Tika, Simna means avadibhut, Sima means avadhi. Simna, sixth case. Avadibhutayaha drushe. Siman is the word. Simna, sixth case. Drushe, again, drushi is the word. Drushe, sixth case. Chidatmana, sixth case. So, Simna, avadibhutayaha drushe, chidatmana, sakasat. So, fifth case, sorry. Chidatmana sakashat. So, from this Chidatma, lokasya avasa tad abhavasya pratyasya tabhavasya syatam yuktitah, then only the appearance of pratyaya and disappearance of pratyaya yuktitah yukti upatte syatam, then only they can be explained logically that the vrittis can appear and disappear. Nacha anyatha, otherwise vritti can't appear unless it is illumined by consciousness and disappear when it merges into its cause, ignorance. In waking dream state, vritti appears as illumined by consciousness. Deep sleep state, they merge into ignorance, therefore they disappear. All of this makes sense when vrittis are enlivened by consciousness. Nacha anyatha. If you don't accept the consciousness reflecting in the buddhi, vrittis, so in the buddhi of the consciousness get reflected, buddhi vrittis also will get reflected. As the earlier verse said, ataptayo visphulingavata. If iron is red hot, the spark is also red hot. The buddhi is sentient, the vritti is also sentient. Tatha sati, the last verse of the verse says, Tatha sati, amasa anabhyavagame sati, pratyay bhav abhavayo, pratyay grahyatva ayogat. Because vrittis won't appear. Vrittis only with reflected consciousness become sentient, they appear, become the object of your experience. What is totally unconscious, you cannot experience. So, buddhi vrittis also, if they were unconscious, you could not experience them. So that vrittis appear and disappear would not be would not be experienced by you. We can logically say the vrittis appear when they are sentient, disappear when they merge into their cause. So that way we can understand by yukti. Nacha anyatha. Avasa anabhyavagame sati pratyaya bhava. Anyatha means this. Anyatha sati. Avasa anabhyavagame sati. If avasa is not accepted, pratyaya grahyatvayo, grahyatva ayogat, then the pratyas so will not become grahya, they will not be perceived. If they are not illumined by consciousness, then they won't be perceived. Why not Atma perceive them? Atyantameva viktasya cha atmana tad grahakato anupatte, that they are insentient, Atma is sentient, totally different realities. So atyantam eva viktasya atmana. Atma that is totally distinguished from them, why? They being unconscious, Atma being conscious. If that kind of difference is there between the two, then Atma cannot become Grahaka. Some similarity must be there between them, that the Buddhi also with the Chidavasa shines like Atma. Then Atma can be Grahita, he can be perceiver and perceived. आभासद्वारा तु संबंधात् आत्मनः बुद्धिवृत्ति भाव साक्षित्वम् उपपद्यते. आभासद्वारा संबंधात्, when abhasa is there, then drashta drishya sambandha can be there. Not Atma as it is and vritti as they are. Atma being changeless and vritti being insentient, there cannot be sambandha of the drashta drishya or graha. So, grahya grahaka. But when buddhi becomes sentient, then it is the same class as Atma. Then Atma can become the drashta and buddhi can become drashya. So, abhasadvaradu sambandhat atmana buddhivritti bhava sakshitam upapadyate. If through abhasa, buddhi also becomes enlivened, then the relationship of the sakshi and sakshya between adhyaksha and the buddhi, upapadyate, is tenable, logical. Buddhesha tad graha atma graha aham asmi, then buddhi also can recognize itself as aham brahmasmi. Upannasyat, because buddhi also must become grahita. Insentient buddhi cannot become grahita. Sentient buddhi can become grahita and it can say, I am Brahman through Lakshana Vritti. So now, author is establishing and firming up his own paksha of how all the vyavahara can be properly explained by the inclusion of Chidabhasa. Taptayo visfulingavat iti drishtanta abhidhanat. Now for explaining, drishtanta is given red hot iron and its sparks. Atma vikara praptam shankate. Is Atma like that? If you give the example of red hot iron and the sparks emerging from that iron, red hot iron is vikari. If that is presented as illustration to explain Atma, does it mean Atma also is vikari? So next verse is Nanvevam drishya sankranti Ayah pinde agnivat bhavet mukhabhasa vidittetat adarshetan nirakritam. So example is of iron and fire. So fire literally enters iron. So pinde agnivat. So pinde agni sankranti. Pinde, I have pinde. In the lump of iron, the fire enters. So sankranti. Fire enters there. Where it was not, now it comes. So when you give that example to explain buddhi and atma, does it mean that atma also enters the buddhi? In that case, there is a movement, that means there is vikara. So how do you explain the consciousness entering the buddhi? The example is like the fire entering the iron. But then there is a movement in fire, so fire is vikari. Is there a similar movement in consciousness? That also become vikari. So example changes. Mukhabhasavat, just as the face enters the mirror. Not like the iron enters the fire, the face enters the mirror. Iti etat adarshe nirakritam. By the example of the face and the reflection, this business entry or change has already been taken care of, has been refuted. So Tika says, Ayaf pinde agni sankranti vata. Entry of the fire in the lump of iron. Buddho dusya sankranti vikaro bhavet. If that example applies in the total sense, then you will imagine that the consciousness enters a buddhi, in which case there is a vikara, because there is act of entry, and there is vikara, change in the consciousness or adhyaksha. So that is the Purvapaksha. With the example now, this, as you give one example and different other questions arise, and then you have to resolve that. Pariharati is refuted. So Mukhabhasavat iti etat adarshe tan nirakritam. Tadetat chodyam, meaning this doubt, this question nirakritam was already resolved earlier. Mukhabhaso iti dushtanta prabandhena nirakritam. We built up the whole background for Mukhabhasa, for the reflection of face, prabandha. We built up the whole background, explained the example in detail. And from that it is very clear that if there is no change in the face or no movement for the face to enter the mirror. So that entry is also possible without sankranti, without real movement. So nirakritam, this doubt was already refuted earlier. Yatha mukasya adarshe pratibimbitasya tas tattven rupena mithyatvam. Yatha mukhasya adarshe pratibimbitasya, just as a face which is reflected in the mirror. That's tattva-rupena mithyatvam. That the face is in the mirror is mithyatvam. The face on my shoulder is a real face. Face in the mirror, there is mithyatva, unreality of that face. That is already explained and accepted by all parties. So there is already settled. The face in the mirror is mithya. Because face follows the characteristics of mirror. Face will appear distorted, the mirror is distorted. The reflection will disappear if the mirror disappears. So that means it is not self-existing. It exists because of mirror. The reflection does not exist on its own, exists because of reflecting medium, and therefore is mithya. Tatha buddhau pratibimbitasya chidatmana buddhi dharmatvena avasa mrshayati. Similarly also, chidatma, when reflected in buddhi, called chidavasa, also is mithya. Chidavasa is not real. Otherwise, adhyaks has entered the buddhi. If chidavasa were real, so as far as iron and fire are concerned, the fire is real. A real fire is entering to real iron, as far as example is concerned. As far as Darstanta is concerned, the consciousness that supposedly enters the buddhi, that entry is not real. It's an appearance, not really an entry. And so, we now clarify the example. The example is then apply in all the aspects. तथा बुद्धो प्रतिबिंबितस्य चिदात्मनः बुद्धिधर्मत्वेन अवभासः. So just as the reflection appearing in mirror seems to reflect the characteristics of mirror, and the distortion of mirror also appear in the face, which is mithya, so also the limitations of the buddhi will appear in chidabhasa. And whatever the characteristics of the buddhi will appear in chidabhasa, that doesn't mean that chid has become like that. That all is limitedness. Because reflection will be controlled by the reflecting medium. So sun also will find its reflection as what? As hazy, as wavy, as small, as many. Because that's all controlled by the reflecting medium. It's all mithya. Buddho pratibimbitasya chidatmana buddhi dharmatvena avasa mrishayati. So all that manyness in the reflection, the waviness in reflection, the dullness of reflection, all of these are due to the nature of reflecting medium, not due to sun. So all of those are mrusha, meaning they are mithya. This Purva Muktam, in earlier verses already stated, verses 33 and 43. Sarvamya anusandeyam, therefore, you please recall what was already discussed earlier. So same explanation applies here. Katham taptayo visfulinga drishtanta uktah. Then why did you give that example of red hot iron and the sparks? Tatra vikara prasiddhe. It's well known that the iron and fire both are vikari. So therefore, why should you give an example where no vikara is involved in adhyaksha, and you want to show the entry of adhyaksha into the chit or in the buddhi? For that you give example of the iron and fire, which is vikari. So why do you give example of vikari? For illustrating the nirvikara. Please tell us. Tatra vikara prasiddhe. That iron and fire both are vikari is well known. Why should you give that example? To explain that adhyaksha there is nirvikara. Says darshtantika ananarupatvat. So meaning your example is inept. It is not appropriate for adhyaksha, who is nirvikara. Your example involves vikara. So it's not an apt example. Iti asankya vivakshitam shasya ihapi sambhavat. It says, well, even though example is not applicable in all his aspects, vivakshitamsa. So amsa means that aspect which is intended by us. In that the example applies, not in every aspect. Like the 10th man. But Swamiji, the other day you said that a brahmachari came and told them, and today you are saying that an old man came and so who is right, Example doesn't apply in all aspects. Ityah Krishnayati. So next verse says, Krishnayo lohita bhasam ityetad drishtamuchyate drishtadashtantatulyattvam nadu sarvatmana kvachita. Krishna ayas means iron. Ayo means ayas. Krishna ayas means black iron. Lohita, at the sixth case, Krishna ayaha lohita bhasam. That black iron appears lohita or red iti etad dushtam dushtantam uchyate. That is all that is intended for the dushtanta. That iron which is red, black in color, appears red. Dushtadashtanta tulyatvam natu sarvatmana kvachita. It cannot be that the dushtanta illustration and darstanta illustrated are similar in all aspects. Then there will be no dushtanta, darstanta. So, the dushtanta, you see similarity only in certain aspects, not in all the aspects. So, Krishnaya, say Krishna Varnam Ayaha. So, Krishna means Krishna Varnam, that which is black in color. Ayaha, Lohitavasam, Lohita Varnam Amavasaha. So, the iron, Ayaha, it's only a nominative case. Ayaha Lohitavasam. That iron is Lohitavasam, is red in avasa, red color, red in appearance. Lohita Varnam Avabhasa ityetata, meaning that the F pinda is Lohita Varnam Avabhasa. That iron ball appears as red, Lohita Varnam. Iti etavadeva dushtam dushtanta uchyate. Dushta is dushtanta. So that is the aspects in which the dushtanta illustration is intended by us. Jarayaha buddhe chaitanya avasatvam ityartha. Just as the black iron appears red, so also the buddhi that is jada or unconscious appears conscious. So that is that is aspect of dushtanta which is intended by us. Sarvamsha samyam anupannamidi. Sarvamsha samyam, the similarity in all aspects is untenable, is never logical. So, dushtanta, darstanta, tulyatvam, natu sarvatmana kvachita, never. That there is similarity of dushtanta and darstanta, then it will no more remain dushtanta. So, dushtanta always has similarity of darstanta in some aspects. Otherwise, mukha chandravata aprakashadhyatmana mukhade chandradi dushtanta abhava prasangat. So the face of a woman is very commonly compared to the moon. You know, the poets do that. But you don't have all similarity in all aspects. Aprakasha, the face doesn't shine like moon. And so moon has so many other qualities the face does not have. So mukhade chandradi dushtanta abhava prasanga, otherwise you can't give any example. So you can't compare the face of this woman with moon if you expected that the similarity must be in all aspects. It's not so. Only just as the moon is very pleasant and is round and beautiful, so also his face, but not that it is round and totally and then shining, etc. So that's not intended. Dushtante vyakshitam amshamuktva. So in Dushtanta ayah pinda vyakshitamsha is being said that just the appearance of red color, that's what is meant. Not that the fire enters the iron and all other aspects. Darstantikevi tadavidam amsham darshayati. In Darstantika, what is illustrated also, that one amsha only you have to take. So next verse is Tathaiva chetana bhasam Chittam chaitanyavad bhavet Mukhabhaso yatha darshe Avasaschodito mrusha. Tathaiva, in a manner similar to that, Chaitanyavasam chittam chaitanyavad bhavet. So also chittam, the mind or the buddhi, chaitanyavasam. which is enlivened by the reflection of Chaitanya, Chaitanyavat Bhavet also becomes like sentient conscious. Mukhavāso yathādarsha, just as the reflection of a mirror also appears like face. Abhasa chodito musha, we already say that abhasa is musha, not real. So Tika says Chetana Bhasam Chittam, explaining that Chetanayaha Abhasa Yasmin Tat Chetana Bhasam Chittam. So Chaitanya Syava Chetanayaha Abhasa. Abhasa, appearance of Chetana or the consciousness or sentiency is where that buddhi is called Chetana Bhasam Chittam. Chittam Chetana Bhasam, which carries the abhasa, the reflection of the consciousness. Chaitanyavat bhavet, it also acts as though it is sentient or conscious. So buddhi that receives the reflection of consciousness also acts as though it is conscious. Mukhavāso yathādarshe, sacha āvāsa yathādarshe mukhavāsa vikrutaha. So there also that abhasa is similar to the reflection of the face in the mirror. A reflection is vikruta, changing. Because mirror is there, reflection is there, mirror is not there, reflection is not there, mirror is distorted, etc., etc. So vikruta. The face is not vikruta, but the reflection is vikruta. If ihapi drashtabhya, similar here also, that chidabhasa is vikruta. Because it follows dharma of chittam. And so chittam changes, chidabhasa also changes. So that is how evam ihapi drashtabhya. Here also chidabhasa, the same kind of model is to be accepted here or seen here. Abhasa chodito mrusha abhasascha upadishtataya dushyaman mrusha iti uditaha. That already was said in the earlier verse, that abhasa is mithya. Upadishtataya, because abhasa appears as though it is in the upadhi. See, reflection appears as though it is in the mirror. Whereas in reality the face is on my shoulders. And face appears as though it is in a mirror. So it is mrusha, it is mithya. Abhasa is mithya, has already been established earlier. It's not real. And therefore, same thing applies here, that abhasa is mithya. So you give example of the real things, like iron and fire, etc. But then, so the iron appearing red is not mithya. But the buddhi appearing conscious is mithya. And therefore, we already said this, that you cannot apply the example in all its aspects. That's all. Illustration in all its aspects. Now a more fundamental question. Kasma chidavasa vyaptya chittasya chetanata avasa abhivagamyate. Why do you say that the chittam, the buddhi appears conscious because of reflected consciousness, and nasvata? Why not buddhi itself is conscious? So far it has been assumed that buddhi is unconscious, appears conscious because of the reflected consciousness. But why do you say that the consciousness of buddhi is because of the reflected consciousness? Why not buddhi is conscious by itself, nasvata? The shanka na karya, that kind of doubt should not be raised. Tatra pramana abhavat, that buddhi by itself is conscious, there is no pramana. And no nyaya, no reason also. So therefore, the consciousness in buddhi is certainly reflected consciousness and not inherent consciousness. So chittam, next verses. Chittam chetana mityetata shastra yukti vivarjitam Dehasyapi prasangasya Chakshuradestatthaiva cha Chittam Chetanam, that Chittam is conscious. It is Shastra Yukti Vivarjidam, that statement is devoid of the Shastra. No way Shastra say that Chittam is conscious. Yukti Vivarjidam, even the reasoning also will not be able to establish that. Dehasyapi prasangasya, if Chitta can be conscious by itself, then body also can be conscious by itself. Why not? Because what is created of 5 elements which are unconscious, that Chittam, which is product of 5 unconscious elements, can be conscious, then body also, that is the product of 5 elements, can also be conscious. Why not? Chakshurade and Chakshu and other indriyas also create the same 5 elements, they also can be conscious. Why not? Utpatti vinashavattaya anya dushyasya vichitasya chet chetana svabhavasya tada ati prasangasya. Utpatti vinashavattaya. First of all, Chittam is Utpatti vinashavat. In deep sleep state, Chittam disappears, there is vinasha. When you wake up, Chittam again appears, manifests. So the Utpatti vinasha, as far as Chittam is concerned, it is subject to appearance and disappearance. Anya dushyasyapi, and Chittam is drishyam. Chittam is something that is known to us, and therefore is drishyam as well. Chittasya chet, chetana sva, chitta, that is of that nature. Drishyam in one place, at the same time subject to utpatti vinasha, appearance and disappearance. If Chittan, which has Chetan and nature like that, can be also self-effulgent, tada ati prasanga, then other entities which are also like that will also be self-conscious. Ati prasanga. So prakrutat anyatra prasanjanam. Ati prasanga. So prakruta, what is under discussion? Same rule applies elsewhere, it's called ati prasanga. Yasya bodho yatra abhimataha tat anyasyapi bodha. So the prasanga is that we intended to convey something in a given situation. And there are always boundaries to what you are conveying. If the boundaries are not there, the same rule will apply everywhere. Same rule does not apply everywhere because this rule has a boundary. So if there are no boundaries, as far as Chittam is concerned, as it is, it can become conscious, even though it is subject to Utpatti Vinasha, even though it is Drishyam, and still Chittam can be Chetanam, then whatever is Drishyam and whatever Utpatti Vinasha Shilam also will become Chetanam, like Deha. So you would then accept Deha, so Deha Syavi Prasangasyat, Chakshuradehe Taseva. That's called Ati Prasanga, which is unfavorable, only because then there is no rule applied. Then you can't say Buddhi alone is Chetanam. Why everything is Chetanam? So why don't you then accept Deha also is Chetanam and Indriyas also is Chetanam? Then you don't. So why do you restrict Chetanatvam to Buddhi only? Because Buddhi and other same class of Utpatti, Vinasha, Drishyatva, etc. Ati prasangasya dushparihara. You cannot avoid this same inclusive of other things also which you do not intend. See, ati prasanga means inclusion of the conditions or cases which are not intended. So you only intend buddhi. You don't intend deha and indriyas. But if buddhi is said to be chetana on this account, just say buddhi is chetana, why not? Then buddhi is utpatti vinashavati. Buddhi is drushya. Then whatever utpatti vinasha shilam drishyam, they also will become chetanavantam. That will include dehas, indriyas, everything. Then why buddhi? Why only buddhi? Why not everything? You want only buddhi to be Chetana. And there is no logic for that, otherwise all other things also be included. So let it be. Ishtapattimashankya, that follows, let every be Chetana, why not? So that Charvaka would be happy. Then okay, body also is Chetanam. So tadapi. Tadapyastviti chetatna lokayatika sangate nacha didrushirasma nacha didrushirasmiti yadya bhaso na chetasi. Tadipyastu iti chet. Let body also be sentient, sense organ be sentient, why not? Tadipyastu iti chet. Na lokayatika sangate avaidikatva prasangat. Then you are transcending the boundaries of Vedas. Because Vedas do not accept that. So, lokayatika sangate. You have to accept the paksha of lokayatika or charvaka or materialist who say that the body is conscious. Consciousness is the property of the body. So that is one thing. Nacha dhihi drushi asmiti. The dhi cannot say, so drushi aham asmi. Drushi means consciousness. Then dhi will never be able to say, I am consciousness. If dhi is accepted as conscious as it is, it won't be able to say, I am consciousness. Yadi abhaso na chetasi. If there is no abhasa, then dhi also cannot say, I am consciousness. Kincha abhasa anabhyogame dvar abhavat aham brahma agantukam vakyamaikya jnanam. See, buddhi is conscious, then it knows that I am Brahman. See, aham brahma agantukam jnanam. Buddhi does not know so far that I am Brahman. And when it is told Tattvamasi, then it recognizes I am Brahman. It is agantukam jnanam, the knowledge that takes place in buddhi. If buddhi was sentient to begin with, then by itself, then it will always have that knowledge. So, abhas dvarabhavat aham brahmasmiti agantuka vakyajanyam aikya jnanam na siddhet. Either buddhi does not know, then it will never know. Or buddhi knows and will always know. Agantukam jnanam na siddhet. That one right now it does not know, then it knows. That if buddhi was Chetana by itself, then that can't be explained. Chetasi yadi abhaso na bhavet tadadrushi brahma asmiti dhi na bhavet. If chitta, there is no abhasa, then chitta will not know that I am drushi or I am adhyaksha. Kevalasya chittasya jadatvat. Chitta by itself is inert or insentient. Chin matrasya kutasthatvat, and Chaitanya by itself is kutastha. So if there is no abhasa, then the same thing was discussed earlier, that there will be no possibility of this knowledge taking place. So this is how the necessity, the importance and functioning of the Chidabhasa is now being explained. We'll continue. Om Purnamadah Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Shankaram Shankaracharyam Keshavam Badarayanam Sutra Bhashya Krutau Vande Bhagavantau Punah Punah Ishvaro Gururatmeti Murti Bheda Vibhagine Vyomavad Vyapta Dehaya Dakshina Murtaye Namah. Om Shanti Shanti. Hari Om. Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Hari Om.